For 2 years, the best AI model you could actually download and run yourself came out of China. GLM, DeepSeek, Qwen, Kimi. The West had frontier labs, sure, but almost nothing you could self-host. If you wanted good and open on your own disk, you were shopping in Chinese. This week, that changed. A startup called Poolside dropped Laguna S 2.1, 118 billion parameters, but it only fires 8 billion of them per word. It fits on one desktop you can buy today. No data center, no monthly API bill. And on one coding benchmark, it beats a model carrying 1.6 trillion parameters, 13 times fewer, and it wins. So the title asks the obvious question. Is it the best local model? And does it beat GLM 5.2, the one everybody calls the best open model out there? Short answer, not on every test. But that's not really the story. The story is that the West is finally back in the open race, and it got there by going small. So here is the plan, what it is, and the trick that lets something this small punch this hard. What it actually beats, and where it loses, honestly. What it costs to run on your own desk in 2 very different price brackets. And the honest catch, because there's always one. Start with what actually changed. For a long time, open weights came with a trade-off you just had to swallow. You could have the model sitting on your own disk where you control it, or you could have real frontier-grade quality. Almost never both in the same download. The models you could run at home were toys next to whatever the big labs kept locked behind an API. So the serious work, the agents, the refactors, the overnight jobs, stayed in the cloud, running on someone else's meter at someone else's price. Then the Chinese labs broke that. GLM, DeepSeek, and Qwen shipped open models that were genuinely good. Not good for open, actually good. And a big slice of the open source world quietly rebuilt itself on top of them. Which is great, right up until you run a Western company that legally cannot ship code touching a model your security team has been told not to trust. Banks, defense, healthcare. That exact gap, good, open, and trusted at home, is the whole hole Laguna is built to fill, and it's genuinely open. The weights ship under a license called OpenMDW. A real open license, not one of those look but don't touch research agreements that ban you from ever shipping a product. You can download it, run it, and build a business on it. So how does a model this small do the work of a giant? The trick has a name, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Mixture of experts. Picture 118 billion parameters of knowledge split into specialists. For each word it generates, a small router looks at the problem and wakes only the 8 billion experts it actually needs for that word. The other 110 billion stay asleep. So it carries the memory of a huge model, but pays the running cost of a tiny one. Only about 7% of it fires at any moment. That's the whole secret. 8 billion active is small enough to live on hardware you already own. And it reads 1 million tokens in one shot. Not a chat message. A whole large code base. Every file, every test, every config, held in its head at once while it reasons about a change. Now the numbers, because this is where the title gets an answer. And I'll give you the honest version, not the marketing one. On SWE-bench multilingual, fixing real bugs in real repositories across real languages, Laguna scores 78.5%. First place, above every open model they put it against, GLM included. On a brutal agentic benchmark, Laguna hits 40%. DeepSeek's biggest model, the one carrying 1.6 trillion parameters, scores 9. Same story on code-based question answering, where the model has to actually understand a repo before it edits it. Laguna 46, that same trillion parameter DeepSeek 27. When the task rewards understanding over raw size, the small model keeps winning. So does it beat GLM 5.2 on multilingual bug fixing and on tool use? Yes, it genuinely does. That's a real scalp, and Poolside earned it. But I'm not going to sell you a clean win, because it isn't clean. GLM is a far bigger model, 740 billion parameters, 5 times more active than Laguna. And on the 2 benchmarks people quote first, GLM still edges ahead. Terminal tasks, GLM 81 to Laguna's 70. SWE Pro, GLM 62 to Laguna's 59. Those are close races, a few points each. But if you're keeping score straight, GLM takes both. So it's a split decision, not a knockout. Laguna does not dethrone GLM across the board, and anyone telling you it does is selling something. What it does do is land within a few points of a model 6 times its size while running on a fraction of the hardware. And it's got a second gear. Flip on max thinking mode, and that hard agentic score climbs from 16% all the way to 40%. The bill for that jump is real, though. It burns roughly 2.5 times as many tokens to think its way there. Now the part the title actually promises, local. Because a great benchmark you can only rent through an API is not a local model. And this is where being small finally pays for itself. The whole thing fits on one NVIDIA DGX Spark, a desktop AI box about the size of a paperback, around $4,000, 128 gigs of unified memory. Squeezed to 4-bit, Laguna weighs 59 gigs on that box. It fits with room to spare, the full model plus a big chunk of that million token context, all sitting in local memory at once. And it runs at 50 to 77 tokens a second on that single machine. That's fast enough to actually code with. Not demo. Code. Reading your files, writing an edit, running your tests, sitting on your desk, completely offline. Day one, it ran in Ollama, VLLM, and SGLang, the exact tools people already have installed, plus hosted options like OpenRouter. You're not waiting 6 months for the ecosystem to catch up. Don't have $4,000 for a Spark? Here's the move I actually love. You run it on RAM. 232 gig sticks, 64 gigs of DDR4, and a plain 12 gig graphics card. The iQ4XS Quant is a 57.6 gig file, and the one command that makes it work is this, ncpumo set to 46. That tells llama.cpp to push 46 of the expert layers out into system RAM and keep everything else on the card. That's the dial between fitting and not fitting. Because here's the thing everybody gets wrong. This isn't a 12 gig model. It's a 57 gig model renting 12 gigs of VRAM. The real requirement is 62 gigs of usable system RAM and 12 of VRAM. And the VRAM isn't just holding the model, it's holding the context and the compute space too. If you've got 16 gigs of system RAM, this model is not for you. But if you already own a decent card, buying RAM Beats, buying a whole DGX Spark, or a multi-GPU rig by a mile, and add all that up against the cloud math, a Frontier API charges you per million tokens forever and rate limits you the second you get busy. A local model is one hardware cost and then unlimited tokens at zero marginal price. For anyone running agents all day, that flips the whole equation. Plus the pitch you can't buy back later. Your code never leaves the building. So who pulled this off? Poolside, founded in 2023 by IsoCont and Jason Warner. And that second name matters because Warner used to be the CTO of GitHub. They've raised over $600 million, and last October, NVIDIA itself put in up to $1 billion more, pushing the valuation to around $12 billion. When your chip supplier is also your investor, you don't run short on GPUs. They trained this whole model in under 9 weeks on roughly 4,000 H200 chips, 30 trillion tokens, start to finish. And it's the first model they trained with reinforcement learning in 8-bit precision, a cost-cutting move most labs still think is too risky to try at this scale. Can't put it bluntly. It does the work of models several times its size because of how they build, not despite it. And notice the name. The S is the small one. They shipped an even tinier XS 5 weeks earlier. Laguna S is the first scale up in the line, not the ceiling. Now the honest part, because the launch post is definitely not going to lead with this. Caveat 1. Every benchmark number I just gave you comes from Poolside itself. As of launch day, nobody outside the company had independently reproduced them. That doesn't make them fake. It makes them a claim, and a claim is worth less than a result until somebody else checks it. Caveat 2, it still trails the closed frontier. Anthropic's Claude beats it on terminal tasks 88 to 70. That is not close. OpenWeights closed a huge chunk of the gap this year. They did not close all of it. Caveat 3, and this is the one people forget, a benchmark is not your code base. A model that tops every chart can still faceplant on your weird internal framework and your undocumented conventions. Run it on your own work for a week before you trust it with anything that matters. So, back to where we started. For 2 years, the only good self-hostable models spoke Chinese. Now there's a Western one that fits on your desk, ships under a real open license, and trades punches with a model 6 times its size. That router waking up 8 billion specialists at a time, leaving the other 110 asleep. That's not a compromise anymore. That's the whole design finally paying off. Is Laguna S 2.1 the best local model right now? For a Western open weight model, you can download and run yourself today. No strings, no API. Yes, it doesn't beat GLM on everything, and I won't pretend it does. But it doesn't have to. It just has to fit on your desk and answer to no one but you. And now it does. If this cleared up where the open race actually stands, subscribe. That's the only thing I'm selling here. I'll see you in the next one.